if some of the questions are actually relevant to today's topics, and then we can go from there. So I'm going to do a little bit of introduction of today's sessions. Let me share my screen real quick. Okay. And everybody, please let me know in the chat if you can see my screen so that I know I'm doing the right thing. All right. Now, if you can see my screen, please give a thumbs up or leave a message in the chat. We'll also allow some time. I see messages coming in. Okay, that's good. All right. All right. For today's sessions, we are going to talk about, sorry, let's try it one more time. Close. All right. So for today's session, we're going to talk about the H1B new final rule that has come out this Monday. We're going to analyze when it comes to OPT and CPT for F1 students in particular. What will be the potential impact when it comes to your wage, your salary, your jobs, all of that good stuff. And then interestingly, me and Marta were talking about, interestingly, the USCIS actually U.S. government has came out with the prediction data of next year's selection rate. So how do they come up with that data? Do we trust those data when it comes to H1B selection rate? We're going to break down all of that. So before we begin, I wanted to briefly talk about us as the host. So my name is Ryan. I work for Go Elite. We are a education agencies. We mainly work with Day 1 CPT schools. So some of our students, when they're at the end of their OPT, they wanted to continue their job, their career in the US, they may consider CPT as an option to enroll into a school and continue working and studying in the USA. So we are certified by AIRC as one of the biggest educational institutions. And then currently we have our reward program. So if you're enrolled in one of our partners, there's activities that you can complete, and then you can earn reward points that gets cash back. For example, enrollment, referral, join our community, and all that good stuff. And then just like this session today, I'm also hosting lots of other sessions with career experts, immigration attorneys, and Day 1 CPT University. So definitely check it out in our websites at goeli.com/events, where you sign up for this event actually. And there will be a lot of information and also previous recordings you can check out. So if you are not sure about who we are, definitely feel free to check out Google reviews. We have more than 500 Google reviews on our services. So definitely check us out. And we're on all Google, on all social medias. So feel free to visit any of these platforms that you're using for now. So I'm going to stop sharing from my side. And then Marta, you can go ahead and start sharing. And we can begin today's presentation.
All right. Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us in today's webinar on New Year's Eve. I know you might have other things planned, so I will keep our webinar very focused on today's topic. And please also, as Ryan said, feel free to leave your questions. We're going to answer all the questions at the very end. Just to kind of get to know everybody a little bit better, I wonder how many of you are going to be the first time H1B beneficiary? Like, is there any first timers? If so, can you type 1 just so that I know you have never participated in the H1B lottery in the past? Okay, so we do have some. All right. So for the others, I assume that you've already participated in H1B lottery before. Okay. So I will keep that in mind as we are sharing. Okay. Let me see. Can you see my sharing of the?
Let's try it again. See if that is, now we see, now we see
Okay.
the whole screen. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, great. All right. So first of all, just some disclaimer. Okay, so whatever we share today is for educational purpose only. It is not supposed to be legal advice to your specific case. Even this is a Q&A, if I answer your specific question, that is still based on general information. Okay. And also, whatever we share today, we will give consent to Go Elite to upload the whole video onto the YouTube channel. Please do not share today's information, any video clip, any screenshot to any social media. Feel free to keep that for yourself, as a reference. But as to public media, please do not share any clips from today's webinar. Thank you very much. All right, a little bit about myself. I've been practicing immigration law since 2012. I'm a certified legal specialist in immigration law. I focus mainly on work visas and employment-based cases. So we handle H1B every year, the lottery. So I've done H1B since even before the online registration was a thing. We started with all these paper filing, lottery, and until right now, we have all these online registration available, and we've been through several changes about the online registration. So we're going to be talking about the current change and how the previous changes would come into play together with the change this time. Okay. All right. So first of all, H1B lottery. Since we still have some first timers, I'm going to spend a little bit of time to explain how this process works. Even for some of you who have, been through this lottery process in the past, maybe it's still, beneficial to know like how this process works. First of all, beneficiary centric. Okay, that's something, that's already being implemented this year. So if you have multiple petitioners, like you have multiple offers, but you are still gonna be counted like once as the base. Okay, so you won't get multiple selections just because you have multiple offers. So this is called beneficiary centric. So it's still going to be the case for next year. So someone won't have an increased chance just because the person has multiple offers. Okay. And as to the 2 rounds of selection, we've also seen sometimes some beneficiary may have some confusion here, like, okay, when am I gonna know the result? I know there's a separate pool for US advanced degree holders. Is that gonna be like conducted at a different time? No, they're actually are gonna be run like about the same time. So that's usually at the end of March. So by April the 1st, you will, not actually you, but your employer will be notified in the online portal whether your case, your registration is selected or not. So they will only know the result and they will see in the selection notice whether you're selected in the regular cap or in the master cap if you do have a US advanced degree. Okay, but they won't announce that separately. So they are going to announce those selected cases all together toward the end of March, regardless, whether you're selected in the regular cap or the master cap. So that's how that is done. The difference this time is in the past, or, like say this year or before this year, when USCIS do the lottery, it's purely random. The only difference is for those who have US advanced degrees, they're gonna have a little better chance because they're gonna participate in the lottery for the regular cap first, and then if not selected, they're gonna have a second chance in the pool for the US advanced degree holders. So because there are 2 pools, and by the way, for the regular cap, that's 65,000 annually. And for the separate cap for master degree holders, or that, of course, that includes PhD as well, advanced degree holders, that's going to be another 20,000 quota. That's it, altogether 85,000. In the past, within those 2 pools, the lottery is done like randomly, so it doesn't really factor into anything else. So people had always questioned whether some larger companies would have better chance. No, they have more selection just because they have more registrants. Like bigger, larger companies, they have more employees like entering into the lottery system. But statistically, that should be the same as the smaller companies. And it also had nothing to do with the person's job? Like, would a certain occupation have like better chance than the others? No, not at all, because those information was not even collected during the lottery stage. So that's what we are doing this now. That's what we are doing, like say this year and in previous years. So in this new rule, that will take effect from next year. So if this is going to be the rule governing the next H1B lottery, it's going to be different. So that one factor that would change everyone's odds is going to be your wage level. So if you're at a higher wage level, you're going to have a better chance. So that is how this rule works. So still, like if everybody is like start from like one time. Okay, if you are in this lottery, you're gonna at least be counted once. So even you are at a lower wage level, as long as that's like meeting the entry level wage, the wage level 1, you would at least have the chance, but you're going to be counted once. Okay, but if you're at a higher level, so there are altogether 4 wage levels. If you're at wage level 2, you're going to be counted twice. And if you're level 3, you're going to be counted 3 times. So basically, it's like you are going to a raffle, like at different levels, you're going to have multiple tickets. The higher the wage level is, the more tickets you're going to have. So statistically, you can have higher chance to be selected. But there's still no guarantee, as long as it's not like 100% for level 4. So there's still chance of getting selected or not getting selected. And same for level 1. No matter how low the chance is, there's still chance of getting selected or not selected. So the question is, okay, what is the chance of being selected for each level next year? This is a projection made by USCIS, but I don't think it would be very accurate. And here are a few reasons. Okay, the USCIS made this projection based on this year's data. So they assume the number of beneficiaries would be the same next year as this year. So they're doing all these analysis projections purely based on the assumption that the data, the number of registrants, going to remain the same. We know like next year, there's also something very different from this year, which is the 100K rule for H1B. That is still effective, right? And because certain H1B petitions would have to pay 100K dollars, US dollars, to get approved, that definitely affect the employer's willingness to sponsor certain employees. And just to add some clarification here, if you are currently in the US maintaining a valid status, your petition won't have to pay that 100K for the H1B under the H1B rule. However, if the beneficiary, like the H1B worker, is overseas or for whatever reason chooses to go through the consular processing, then that case would have to pay the 100K to get approved. So for those companies that largely depend on these foreign workers coming directly from overseas, not hiring domestically from this pool of like say international students, I would expect like the number of registration drop significantly for those employers. So if that is true, that means everybody would have a better chance of getting selected if the total number of registrants like go down. And meanwhile, as to the different levels, so currently USCIS is making this projection based on still the data they collect from this year's H1B filing, like how many people selected level 1 this year in the actual H1B petition, and for level 2, level 3, and level 4 respectively. But because of the new rule, right? So people or like say the employer, like say if someone is currently at wage level 1, but if the person is very close to wage level 2, there's a chance some employer may consider adjust like the wage ahead of time, just to make sure the person may have a slightly like better chance in the lottery. That's a possibility. And also the way USCIS consider wage level in the lottery is very different from how USCIS or Department of Labor considers wage level in the LCA, the labor contingent application. That is getting a little technical. I'm gonna explain later. But basically, a lot of people whose LCA states level 1 may actually have a wage at a higher level. But in LCA, it was selected as level 1. So that would mean people are at a higher wage level, actually a larger pool than what's currently in the chart. So that means, well, first of all, if the total number would go down, then everybody has a better chance. But those who are at a higher wage level I would imagine, would have a much better chance than 60%. That's my personal guess. We'll see next year if that is true or not. So people at a higher wage level would even have a better chance of getting selected next year. Okay, why there are different wage levels? It's supposed to kind of reflect people's skill set. So people who are at a higher wage level is supposed to, have more skills, more experience. That is why there's a wage level there in the government database in the first place. Okay, here it is. How is H1B wage level determined? That's a little bit confusing, I would say. That's the most confusing part. Actually, when the proposed rule first came out, it was even very confusing to a lot of immigration lawyers. Let's say we were not sure what USCIS mean, like having a wage level, the proffered salary would equal or exceed. So are we talking about the actual wage level in the LCA, or are we talking about the just like the wage level that the proffered salary would equal? That's very different. So first of all, to determine the wage level, we need to know a few things. First, the position's SOC code. That is a code, if you go to the Department of Labor website, you have to first select the SOC code. I saw a question in the Q&A already. When attendee was asking like how to find the SOC code. That's a great question. That's usually done at the petition filing stage. It's like in the past, it was never asked during the registration because previously it was purely random. But now we have to determine this upfront. We have to determine what this position's SOC code is at the very beginning of the registration. And this might be the most important thing in this whole process. There's not really much you can do, but SOC code determination is really the key for several reasons. First, different SOC code would mean different wage level. So let's see, like say, for example, I saw a question about like say some sort of product manager, right? Like what is the SOC code for product manager? It can vary from company to company depending on what this person does exactly. Like if this is a personnel manager, the person, this manager does manage others, like it can be a manager role. And the starting wage for managers is pretty high. So even you are paid a very high wage, but if you're compared with other managers, you might just be like a level 1. Like if you compare with other managers, it may not be a very high level. Even the wage itself is very high, right? But if the person doesn't really do those manager roles, the person is just given like this manager title, but mostly doing, those product analysis, market analysis. Maybe the code is actually an analyst code, like market analyst code. Then given that same wage, the person may have a much higher wage level compared with other analysts. So that would be a huge difference in the wage level. So that's the first most important thing, SOC code. And second, okay, then I hope, some of you may think, okay, does that mean if I just go with an occupation with an overall lower wage, then I would have a better chance of getting selected. Well, that might be true, but remember, H1B is not just about wage level. After your case is selected, we still need to prove the position is a so-called specialty occupation, a position that requires, certain skill set and requires at least a bachelor degree in specific majors. So let's say if you pick like an SOC code, let's say, for example, a technician. Okay, for most technicians, the wage level is much lower, let's say, than engineers. Well, you may be a level 4 technician, but you may have problem, you may have difficulty proving to USCIS that your position is complex enough after being selected. So our ultimate goal is still to get the case approved, not just selected, right? Just being selected doesn't mean the case is going to get approved automatically. So you still need to go through this adjudication process to prove this is a qualifying position. This is a position that meets all the requirements of H1B, and the specialty occupation is one of them. So that's the second reason. You cannot just pick with a code that like with the lowest like wage, because you may have difficulty proving the position is a specialty occupation. And the third, whether this is the actual duties that you will be performing. So that is also something USCIS would adjudicate, would review closely. One, when they adjudicate your case, when they review all these documents, they would decide, is this what you're going to be doing? Is this the right code given your duties? So that's something USCIS would check first. And even after the case is approved, there's also a chance that USCIS these days could do on-site visit. So they might actually go to the work site and visit you and your employer and ask to, question you or the company's representative about what you're doing at the company to decide whether your actual duties match what's in the paper. So for all these reasons, I would say selecting the correct SOC code is super important to the H1B process at both the lottery stage and at the the adjudication stage, and even post-approval stage. So this is the most important thing. Select the correct SOC code. Okay. And the two, location. Even for the same occupation, at different location, you may have different wage levels. Like the same for like say, for example, 100K, maybe a very high wage in some rural area, but it can like say maybe it would be even like level 4, like say for certain like maybe engineer roles. But if it's in Silicon Valley, it may be just a level 1 wage. So that would also be different, given where the person's actual work location is. And in the LCA, we should also consider what the employer's requirement is for this position. But that's irrelevant for the lottery. Lottery doesn't consider the employer's actual requirement for the position. It only considers the SOC code and the location, and then how much the wage is that greater than like a level 1, 2, 3, or 4. So that's how it works. So what happens is, this is the most confusing part. For some people, let's say they might be new graduates. For some new graduates, you may be paid a pretty high wage. Like the wage amount itself is equal or exceeding, let's say, level 3 or even level 4. But the employer's requirement for the position is not that high. Maybe they still just require a bachelor's degree. It's just like this employer gives very competitive compensation package. Like they pay their employees way higher than other competitors in the market. So you may have a much higher wage level at the lottery stage, but you may have a relatively low wage level at the LCA stage. So that can be something quite confusing to someone who's not that familiar with how the wage level plays out in the H1B. And if you work, like say, for some of the large corporation, okay, you may notice the wage level in the LCA after your case is selected, different from the wage level at the registration stage. Don't be surprised. It's possible. Just want to give you guys some heads up. Okay, so this is about specialty occupation. Basically, it requires each petition that's selected to prove to USCIS it's a complex position. Okay, it is a position that requires at least a bachelor's degree in specific specialty as a minimum for entry into the occupation. Okay, next is the timeline. So for the H1B, the lottery registration would usually last for 2 weeks in March. What time in March? We don't know. Every year, USCIS is going to make announcements sometime in January or February. What would be the registration window? So it can start, say March the 7th through like March the 24th. But it can change from year to year depending on the kind of the window to be announced by USCIS. But something that won't change is we will always know the lottery result before April the 1st because the filing window will always start from April the 1st through June the 30th. By the way, if your F1 status expired before June the 30th, your H1B petition, like your employer's H1B petition for you should be filed before, the end of your current OPT status or F1 status. It shouldn't be the June the 30th, because if your status expires before then you would have a different deadline to meet. And if the case is approved, then your H1B change of status will take effect from October the 1st, 2026. So that is the timeline. Okay, so we'll see how this works out because that also means next year the online registration system would look very different from this year's. So USCIS would have to make some change to their system. So another concern everybody's having is that going to really take effect next year? There can be a couple things stopping it from taking effect. One, lawsuit. During the first Trump administration, they also attempted to change the lottery system, but that was blocked by the court. Is that going to be again the case this time? We don't know yet. Maybe not, because this lottery, like this current change to the lottery system, is very different from the change made by the Trump administration during the first term. So this one still is considered a random lottery. So there is a chance that maybe it won't be blocked by the court. So if it's not blocked by the court, so that's going to be the new system. But if it's blocked by the court, then what happens next? Well, that means we will either continue the current online registration system, which is a purely random online registration system. If that's the case, then great. That would be the best case scenario. However, what if USCIS has already started changing their system and in the middle of it, the court blocks it? So they cannot use the new system, but they cannot go back to the older system. What happens then? Well, I hope that doesn't happen, but according to the previously released rule, we may just go to the paper filing for like lottery selection. So that would be a very different kind of landscape. I hope that doesn't happen. That's going to cause a lot of chaos in March. So because all these, still like risks and uncertainties, we need to monitor closely what happens, to the new rule, whether the online system would be able to support the new rule sometime in March, as expected by the current administration. So that's basically what it is. I would love to take some questions from our audience if there's any.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Marta, for the detailed presentation. I think the highlight of today's session is everybody knows based on the new level, wage levels, the selection rate is going to be a little different. So that we are anticipating a lot of questions on the end. And then people are curious, am I under level 1, level 2, level 3? So I see multiple questions on that end as well. So I'm going to jump right into the questions. Meanwhile, questions are still welcomed. Please use the Q&A box down below to send in your questions. Marta, can you see my screen okay? So
Yes.
here are some of the questions that I picked from our audiences for today's, and I kind of summarized them for everybody's easier understanding. So first one is if somebody has already submitted an EB2 and a W, will that have any impact on their, for example, H1B or H4 visa applications, since the NIW is showing immigration intent?
Not at all, because H1B and H4 visas, they allow dual intent. So dual intent means they can have immigration intent, and that's not going to jeopardize the visa issuance or status at all. So if you are filing, any kind of immigration petition, it doesn't have any impact on your H1B or H4.
Mhm. Absolutely. All right, moving on. Next question, can I enroll in a H1B lottery while I'm in school in a day one CPT college?
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody, it like can if you have like a willing employer that would sponsor you for H1B, they can register anybody into the H1B lottery. So, but if you want to avoid that 100K, right? The 100K for H1B petitions, you need to prove that you have been maintaining your lawful status in the US. So that's still possible even for students doing like CPT, but just make sure you have all these proof to show you are still a student in lawful status.
Absolutely. Moving on, next questions. So this person wanted to ask if you start a master program, if I'm going to start a master program in next year, January, would I still be qualified for the advanced degree lottery for next year?
No, until you earn that master degree. So for those who qualify under the US advanced degree, like the so-called like master cap, you have to already have already earned that degree.
All right, next question. Is the 100K fee applicable if I have a US advanced degree? So this question, we can kind of answer it in two ways. One way is if you are currently in the US or not. I think that plays a key factor. But let's just assume that if this person is not in the USA, but previously had a US advanced degree.
Mhm. Well, that 100K has nothing to do with the beneficiary's degree at all. So it only has to do whether the beneficiary is going to change his status in the US, or is that beneficiary, that foreign worker, is going to apply for an H1B visa from overseas to activate the H1B status. So that's different. That's the only difference. So for someone who has to go through consular processing, there can be two scenarios. One, maybe the foreign worker is currently overseas. So if the person is overseas when the H1B employer files the petition for the person, then that person would be subject to the 100K fee. And two, another scenario is if the person is currently, like the foreign worker is currently in the US, however, and request to change status. However, USCIS makes a determination that person hasn't been maintaining the status. The person, for whatever reason, maybe you are in OPT, but USCIS finds out that you have accrued more than 90 days of unemployment time, so you are no longer in a lawful OPT status, then they are going to switch your case to consular processing. So basically, they're requiring you to leave the US and go through consular processing. If that happens, then the case would be subject to the 100K fee as well.
So from where I'm looking at it is basically they wanted to know when you are transitioning to that H1B, do you have a valid status to do the change of status directly to H1B? If you are, for example, your F1 status has already expired for whatever reason, then they're going to ask you to leave the country and then apply for a visa, which is the H1B visa when you file. And then that would occur the 100K payment for that.
Right.
Okay, sounds good. All right, moving on. Next person wanted to ask, can two employers sponsor the same candidate for the H1B lottery with a different wage level? And what happened if the person gets selected by maybe one of the petition?
Okay, so there are two questions here. I'm gonna get answer one by one. So first, if you have multiple employers sponsoring you with different wage level, then the lower wage level would be the wage level that you enter into the lottery. So that system is designed to prevent people from gaming the system. You know, oh, I have multiple, like one is lower, one is higher. I get selected in the higher, but then I go with the lower one. That cannot happen. So if you have multiple, only the lower wage level would apply to you. Same thing if you know the person has multiple work locations. The same wage amount, could be a lower wage level at some of the, maybe the urban like area, big cities, but is a lower, like a higher wage level in some of like say the rural area. Same thing. The lower wage level would apply to the person if the person has multiple work locations. And let's say, if your case is selected, remember right now it is beneficiary centric, which means if you are selected, then you are selected, which means all your, employers' registration are selected. So if you have multiple offers, you have multiple sponsors. If you're selected, then all of them can file cases for you. If you're not selected, then none of them can file cases for you. So it won't be the case where like one gets selected, the other not. No, either it's all or none. Either all of your employers can proceed with the filing or none of them can proceed to the filing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with that, I have a follow-up questions. So, we talked about different employers filing for the same person. So, if like the person's for some situations, if like a company is not willing to sponsor in the first place, and then maybe he had multiple offers. If he get selected by the lottery, for example, April 1st next year, and then when will be like the timeline if he will needs to like convince the employer to sponsor the person if he had multiple offers, but not all of the offers have H1B sponsorship, if I'm making sense here.
Yeah, so then we need to go back to the registration timeline. The H1B registration, like the lottery registration, takes place in March every year. So if you want an employer to sponsor you for H1B, then I would say the latest you should, kind of convince the employer to do that would be the end of February. Well, maybe into March a little bit, but I hope you have like a clear answer from the employer by the end of February at latest, because in March, the registration window would open and you would have to start the registration process. So that would be the latest.
So I guess even though it's beneficiary centric, meaning that the person himself or herself fell into the lottery, but he or she couldn't add an additional employer after April. Like for example, I get selected,
Oh.
but I add another employer in. Would that be possible?
Oh, I see your question. So beneficiary centric just means like when the USCIS runs the lottery, they're gonna count each in like unique beneficiary, not by registration, but by beneficiary. But it is still the company's responsibility to enter the beneficiary and the job information into the system. So a beneficiary cannot enter him or herself into the lottery without the employer. So it's the employer who does that. Of course, I know these days, we have some startups, the USCIS also allows beneficiary owners to file H1B for themselves. So those petitions still have to go through the lottery process. So in those cases, if say you are your own boss, you open the company and you enter yourself into the lottery through the company you own, you still do that under your company's name, not under your individual's name.
That's very clear. Thank you for that, Marta. Let's move on with the next one. Uh, do you have any updates? I think a lot of people are curious about this. Do you have any updates for the HF1 proposal that we also had another session talked about this before.
Yeah.
This person wanted to get enrollment into a second master or day one CPT. in the upcoming future, and he's just wondering, is there any updates on that?
No, so far we haven't heard anything on this rule yet. My guess, just a personal opinion. My guess is DHS probably needs more time to release the final rule for the F1 than the current weighted lottery for the H1B. Because in this H1B proposed rule, the issue was very clear. It's just one issue. They changed the way the lottery was run, and they are adding the wage level to be another factor to consider. That's it. That's the only change they are making. It's very clear. But in the F1 proposed rule, there were so many changes to the current system. So there were so many nuances to all these proposed changes. So I would imagine USCIS, would need way more time to respond to each comment like meaningfully and also release a final rule that, that's plausible. So I think it probably will take some time.
Initially, through our discussion with a lot of immigration attorneys, initially we thought we might hear something concrete by the end of this year or the start of next year. So again, this is the end of this year. This is literally the end of this year today. So we're not hearing anything. But on also one follow-up question for the F1 proposal. So if the person, like for example, if the person decided to enroll into a second master tomorrow or start of January, will he or she be in any trouble, or does they have to do anything if a final rule comes out and then no second master is allowed anymore? Should they transfer out? What should they do for that case?
No, if all these actions are taken before the final rule is released, at least from what we saw in the proposed rule, there are some students, whatever program you're in, you would be grandfathered. So it won't apply retroactively. So that's what we saw in the proposed rule. So if you take action, if you're enrolled in a new program, like even that's a second master program right now, and the new rule bans that, it won't apply to you retroactively.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you. And let's move on to, I think we already answered this one. So let's move on to next question. I think we also answered two employer sponsor. Yeah, we answered this. So next question is, are faculty positions at a university in US all H1B cap exempt? This is also another concept that we didn't talk about today, but a lot of people are curious, which is that they are not subject to the lottery. They don't have a cap. They don't have a lottery odds. They can just apply for H1B anytime. Are all of the faculty positions in US schools capable of applying to that, and also including non-tenures, maybe lecturers or other positions?
Yeah, I assume we're talking about those US universities that are traditionally cap exempt because technically not all universities are cap exempt. Usually only like nonprofit universities are cap exempt. There are also some, for-profit universities, they might not even be cap exempt. So the question I here, I think, is talking about those nonprofit universities that traditionally are cap exempt. Then yes, even non-tenure track, positions at those cap exempt employers are still cap exempt.
Absolutely. And for that case, should the position be research related, or if as long as I work for that school and that school is cap exempt,
Yes,
I can apply for an H1B, even if I'm like a marketing specialist or if I'm something else, I can
that's
still
right.
apply for that position.
That's
Okay.
right.
Sounds good. All right, moving on. Next questions. Actually, last question on the sheet. I'm gonna go ahead and add more questions as people are putting in questions. Last question will be, does level four means lottery being picked four times? And then I'm gonna add another layer of the question is, would that four times, like how would that be? Would that be equally distributed the four times, or how would that be for the next year's lottery?
Right. I think the closest maybe analogy I can give is just imagine you go to a raffle. So if you're level one, you have one ticket.
Mm.
If you're level four, you have four tickets. So that's how it's done.
Then I guess I think some other people have asked questions like, hey, maybe my levels are a level two in my city, in my area. Could that also be like a level four at other locations? And then could like somebody actually change work location, or could the company actually change work location? For example, for remote workers or for something that could turn into their favor.
That's a great question. So the location is reported by the employer at the time of lottery registration. So when the employer enters the information, the foreign worker information, they have to enter, the foreign worker's personal information like passport information, date of birth, names, those kind of things, and also the position information, including where the person will be working. So let's say if the person is gonna work at city A, but the wage level in CA would be lower. So the employer decides to place the person into another city where the person can score a higher level of wage. Well, technically, if the person will be working from that area, it's not legally prohibited. But if the employer, let's say later on, after approval, will amend the level and transfer this person back to CDA, that can be a red flag in the USCIS system. So that is kind of one scenario that USCIS specifically pointed out in the rule that don't try to game the system. If you change wage level even after approval, that would be scrutinized. So that would be a fraud like alert.
I think we have lots of remote workers in the audiences. So when it comes to working fully remote, the company will pick one location for your H1B position lottery. And then I guess you're gonna have some kind of relationship to that location. Is not like you never go to that location or anything like that, because at the end of the day, the system doesn't allow you to trick the system. So I guess this is something we should be aware of.
Right.
Okay. All right. Moving forward, let me go ahead and paste more questions in here so that we could answer more questions for you guys. So next question would be, does any of this apply to H1B transfers across companies? For example, if I'm in a for-profit company right now, I'm transitioning to a nonprofit company.
Well, if you already being counted toward the cap, meaning like you won lottery in the past, then this whole new rule doesn't apply to you. Because if you're a transfer, you're changing employer, those kind of petition doesn't have to go through the lottery again to begin with. So that the rule is only affecting those who have not won the lottery yet.
Mhm. Yeah, for example, we talked about cap exempt H1Bs. If you're working for a university, you used to have a cap exempt H1B, you didn't attend the H1B lottery. Now you're transitioning to a for-profit, maybe an agency, maybe a company, then that applies to the person. Okay. All right. Moving on. I think a lot of people are curious because in your slides, we briefly touched on the SOC code. So people are curious how to actually find the suitable SOC code for my particular positions at my job.
Well, maybe I can share this link to the chat.
Yeah.
Um, Again, this is the single most important thing in my opinion
Mhm.
to should I send to the chat?
Yeah, if you send to the chat just to everyone so that everybody
Okay.
can capture that link, and then you
Okay.
can like people can visit there.
Okay. So
All
you
right.
can, for those of you who are interested in learning more about the wage level, this is the page you're gonna go to. Okay, so if you go to this page, you will select the data. That's the most recent data since July 2025. And in one of the box, it asks you to enter in an occupation code. That's the tricky part. The code that you enters will decide like, your wage level. But like your job title will not necessarily mean there's a code for it because each company can call their position whatever they want, right? Like each company would have different names for different roles, but the number of SOC code in the DOL, the Department of Labor database, is limited. There are only this many code. However, each company call their internal roles. We have to find the most suitable code for that role. But that is something, that requires some analysis, including legal analysis. Like what is the best match to that role, given, the person's job duties and everything. So that's the most important thing. And then after the SOC code is entered, the rest is very straightforward. You select your state, you select your county, and then you're gonna see the different levels for your area, for your code.
And then some people in the audiences also brought up that, hey, this is a big change for H1B. How are they going to communicate maybe with their HR or maybe with their company? Because we are the recipient, we care most about our H1B odds, but maybe, the company doesn't really know much of what's going on. So for example, if somebody currently are at a level one, then he or she wanted to go to level two, would that be like a maybe in your advice, in your opinion, how would the person go ahead and explain all of this to the company? Because
That's tough, because employers has their own, kind of limit because especially for a lot of the states, how much each position is paid should be announced
yeah,
to the society and also to all the members within the company. They cannot just alter their wage system for someone's, H1B. But as I said, like even for one title, it can maybe it could be different SOC code depending on what the person's duties are at different companies. Let's say for example, at a lot of companies we have the so-called project manager, right? A lot of company has project manager, but there's no such SOC code for a project manager. Okay, so if you are a project manager at a construction company, it can be a totally different SOC code from a project manager at like a software developing company. So that's very different. It really, it requires some some experience and legal skill to analyze what is the position really about and what is the most suitable SOC code for the position.
absolutely. That's very helpful. Let's moving on. I think there's one questions that I wanted to kind of show a little bit of clarification to the person. So this person wanted to know that when it comes to H1B lottery, if you have a bachelor degree versus if you have masters or PhDs, would that make differences? For example, like one chance for bachelor, two chance for masters or something like that.
Yeah, as we previously mentioned, there are 65,000 quota for everybody, including bachelor, master, or PhD levels, all levels. They can participate in the lottery within that 65,000 quota. But only those who have at least US advanced degree, which means you have a US master degree or PhD degree, you can participate in the separate 20,000 quota for another round of lottery. But they're going to be done back to back, so you won't really see USCIS announcing, "Oh, we have completed the regular cap lottery. We have completed the master cap lottery." They're not going to announce separately. They just announce the final result, like, okay, we've completed our lottery and you're selected or not. But those who have US advanced degree would have a better chance because they have these separate 20,000 quota reserved just for them.
And to add on top of that, I guess I assume the additional 20,000 is also is definitely also subject to the wage level. So that in
Yes,
that case, if you
yes,
have a master or if you have doctoral, if you have a graduate degree in general, and if you're on level four wage level, you're gonna have the most odds comparing to if you have the level four wage level, but if you only have a bachelor, you actually have a slightly better chance.
yes, that's right.
So that's actually very convincing for people to get a US graduate degree if you're coming from overseas. So,
Oh,
um,
oh, Ryan, I saw this follow-up question. So it seems to be from the person who asked this question to
mhm,
confirm whether one person can only have one H1B in a lifetime, even though he has like multiple degrees. Just
mhm,
to clarify, H1B is unlike OPT. It has nothing to do with how many degrees this person has. So H1B, well, if you win the lottery once, you can have H1B for up to 6 years.
mhm,
But you may extend your H1B beyond the 6 year if you have certain immigration petition approved or filed during your 6 year of H1B, so that you can extend it without leaving. But for whatever reason, maybe you have not started the green card process within that 6 year, you can still have H1B again, but you have to leave the US for at least one whole year and go through the lottery again. And then you can come. You don't have to earn a new degree to get another H1B.
mhm. All right, let's go to the next question. I'm seeing this person also. I think one thing worth to address is this person wanted to know my F1 visa is ending soon, and if I'm filing for H1B in the future, should I renew my F1 visa so that it has anything to do with my status?
Right. So that's a great question. F1 visa has nothing to do with your F1 status in the US. So any visa is only relevant if you are outside the US and you're trying to enter the US. So at the time you're attempting to enter the US, that's when you need a valid visa. But if you are within the US already, so that is your status that's relevant. And your status is determined by your I-20, your active CVIS, all the activities you do within the US. It has nothing to do with your visa stamp.
All right, thank you so much. Another questions that I see, what about H1B renewals? What is going to be affecting the H1B renewals if the final rules has, been already been out?
Well, the H1B renewal or extension is not affected by this rule at all, because this rule is purely, changing the lottery system. And if you are extending your H1B, you don't have to go through the lottery again. So it has nothing to do with the renewal or extension process or change of employer process.
Mhm. All right. Because of timing, I'm going to answer one last questions from this audience. I think I can answer this questions. This person wanted to know when is a good time to enroll in day one CPT if the H1B lottery ends, and the OPT expiring in the middle of next year. So I think the window that you enroll into a school has nothing to do really with the H1B lottery, but it has more
Right.
to do with your status. Like when are you maintaining your status? Like for example, hypothetically, the H1B you need to enter by maybe March next year, and then the result come out in April, and then your status will end in May. Then you absolutely has to keep your status no matter if you're H1B. What would be the result? If you get selected, your OPT gets cap gap, meaning that your OPT will kind of extend it until your H1B become active. But if you didn't get selected, the time for you to enroll into day one CPT or consider any other status will be right before your status expire because you don't want it to occur status expiration day, meaning that I'll being out of status in the USA. So in short, if your OPT ends in May, and then you will have the grace period, we will consider to advise you to enroll in day one CPT no later before your grace periods end. Because after your grace periods end, you no longer have a active status. Your OPT has ended, your F1 status has ended, meaning that you're curing out of status states in the USA. But that definitely has something to do with the H1B lottery. If you get selected, as I mentioned, you have OPT cap gap. You have additional duration for your OPT, maybe from May to October 1st, where your H1B become effective. So keep that in mind. It's not really about it has something to do with the H1B selection chance, but the most important thing is about when does your OPT end or when does your F1 status end. Okay, we still have some questions to go over. Unfortunately, we don't really have time for today's sessions, but I'm really, really happy to do another one of these sessions in the upcoming future because you guys know that F1 final rule might be coming also soon, and then H1B final rule, we are also looking to see how they're implementing that, how maybe some of the filings could be different. So definitely stay tuned with our events in the future. And then thanks again. We really, really appreciate Attorney Marta Meng to joining us, to sharing your presentation insights and also answering all of those questions. We answered a lot of questions for today, so thank you for that.
Thank you for having me. I wish everybody a happy new year and all of you good luck in next year's H1B lottery.
All right, thank you so much. Good luck, everyone, and Happy New Year. And thank you for being with us on this New Year's Eve. I'll see you guys very soon. Thank you. Thank you, Marta. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
See you
Bye.
soon. Bye bye.